Good afternoon, lads, and welcome back to Koality Time, the monthly series where we get to catch up, have a chat. Because if it wasn't bad enough for me to copy Cinema Sins, we had to copy jingles too. I did mean to have this one out just before Monica and I left on a little holiday. We stayed up in a place called Glenelg for a few days, which was really nice. Unfortunately, I didn't have time to record though the morning we left, so as always, it's a few days later than scheduled. Or in other words, right on time. Anyway, I hope that my World of Warships match was long enough to make up the footage for this video, because I don't actually have any more footage saved up right now. Of course, just after my video on the Akizuki, I went and played a couple more matches in it, and had quite possibly the best game I've had in it so far. Oh well, we'll get a better one, I'm sure. Before we get started, to all my fellow content creators out there, do you ever just have those months where you click in on your Google AdSense account to see your earnings for the month and just go, fuck me. Needless to say, I'm pretty happy with the earnings for this month. We might even be able to upgrade the PC some more and maybe, no promises, but maybe just enough to get back to live streaming more regularly than Squire's uploads on YouTube. So that's obviously thanks to you lads, and rest assured that money will be going back into the channel for you to enjoy the fruits of our labour. Speaking of which, have you seen what YouTube's been doing recently? Oh, you haven't? Oh, well, I suppose you thought you'd heard your required dosage of stupid for today then. Well, says YouTube, hold my beer. The first glorious piece of dumbassery from YouTube this month comes from our very own Fly Daily, who received not just one, but 2 copyright strikes. And if you're around for episode 2 of this series, or have spent any amount of time on YouTube, you'll know just how significant strikes are. And one of those strikes was on a video uploaded some 2 to 4 years ago. Now, the first of these strikes was for Fly's use of that "the missile knows where it is" meme, which I will be sorely disappointed if that is not copy-pasted into the comment section of this video. Now, first off, that makes no sense, because there are a billion reposts and remixes of that on YouTube that may get copyright claims, but definitely don't receive takedown notices or strikes. But secondly, you could only assume that for Fly to use that meme would be what's known as a parody, and therefore count as a fair use, right? At the most, he'd lose monetization on the video, but the video should remain up. For example, in my video Carriers Being Carriers in World of Warships Part 2, I used the Avengers theme as a bit of a joke. Well, that video received a copyright claim. Not a strike, there were no viewing restrictions on the channel or restrictions placed on me, I just would have lost the money on the video through ad revenue. Well, I disputed that claim and was able to win that dispute because that use of the Avengers theme counted as a fair use through being a parody. So if that is completely fair for me to not only have that video up on my channel but monetize it myself too, then how the hell does Fly's use of the missile knows where it is get him not just claimed, but copyright struck? The second strike came from copyrighted music Fly had playing in a livestream and uploaded stream highlights to YouTube. Now that video had already been claimed by another party for one of the songs in it, with monetization going to them, which just shows you how utterly stupid some of the copyright rules are on YouTube, because we've now got 2 parties fighting over who has the rights to Fly's video due to some background audio in it. By taking down the video, UMG, or Universal, who struck it, aren't taking monetization away from Fly because he didn't have it already. They're taking it away from the other party, I don't know who that was, who had already issued a claim on the video for a legitimate reason. Now, there are laws that mean that the same disputed content can't receive multiple actions, so content can't be reclaimed or even struck after the first claim issue has been dealt with and resolved. But that doesn't mean that 2 external parties can't claim different content in the same video, which, because one company can't then take away the ad revenue from the other company, the video has to be removed and nobody gets any money from it. I suppose we should just be grateful that multiple parties can't issue strikes on the same video, otherwise one video with 3 different pieces of copyrighted material could mean the end of your channel instantly. And good luck trying to get correspondence from a company like Universal. Shh, Koala, you're giving Suzanne ideas. Oh, right, sorry. Anyway, Fly obviously reached out to Team YouTube on Twitter saying, hey, what's going on? I have 2 strikes on my video, and to be honest, both of them, at least one of them, is kind of unfair. It should have been a claim rather than striking my channel itself. What's going on? And YouTube's handy help people replied with, oh yes, our clever little algorithm bots have been hard at work and we've come to the conclusion. It looks as though... yes. Yeah, we see. We think it looks as though you have a copyright strike. Did you work that out all on your own, YouTube? Well done. We're all very proud of you. Oh, but that wasn't it for this month. Oh, no. You can't expect YouTube to only slip on their own shit once each month. Does anybody here watch Markiplier? I'll be honest, I never have really watched him, but occasionally something he does catches my attention. Well, recently he did a live stream with a kind of pick-your-own-adventure story theme to it, where his chat would type in either green or red emotes, depending on which option they wanted to vote for. Audiences would flood Markiplier's chat with different coloured emotes every time a choice came up in the story, and the majority decided the outcome. At least I believe that's how it worked, I don't actually know. Well, YouTube didn't like that very much. You can see where this is going, can't you? Yep, how dare you type in emote in a YouTube livestream chat window, some of which you even pay to support the channel with a membership so that you can access said emotes in said livestreams. People who message them at the behest of the streamer, one of YouTube's so-called golden boys as well, have had their accounts blocked and their appeals rejected because apparently your channel has been suspended due to violations of our community guidelines and terms of service, and if your appeal is rejected, we're afraid there's nothing we can do. Well, first of all, that's a complete lie, because you are literally in charge of the system, and several people who did have their accounts reinstated ended up having them resuspended half an hour later, which is illegal, and you are required by law to do something about it darn quickly. And secondly, it'd be bad enough if it were just YouTube accounts getting suspended, meaning people's videos, if they themselves are YouTube creators, are potentially gone, their watch history, subscriptions, channel memberships, and YouTube services which they pay for are gone for no real good reason whatsoever. But viewers of a livestream who used an emote they paid to be able to use were having their Google accounts suspended, which means email accounts were affected, Google Plus accounts, yes, all 3 of them, Google Drive, etc. And a lot of jobs these days rely heavily upon integration with Google accounts, and I'm not just talking about big corporate business dealings. I used to have a job, in fact 2 jobs, that used my Google account. Monica's university work relies on their Google Drive. So a lot of these people's jobs, their careers, could have even been affected by this. To be fair on this one, people at YouTube did A, admit publicly that yes, we really screwed the pooch on that one, and B, work tirelessly to get it fixed within a few days, reinstating the accounts and working to solve the issue. Even Suzanne Daniels, who's the head of content for YouTube, has put in a lot of work on this specific issue, and I believe that issue's been dealt with. But it's a bit like someone smearing shit on your face, before wiping it off again and expecting you to be thanking them for it. And that's not even it. The Federal Trade Commission has recently decided to enforce the COPPA law against YouTube. Now, this is the law that prevents the collection of personalised data from users of a web platform who are under the age of 13, which is a good thing. But in 2013, an amendment to the COPPA law was made to include cookies and personalised advertisements. The adverts that are shown to you based on your internet browsing history to make you more likely to want to click on them and, by extension, hopefully buy something. If you've been searching up a lot of, for example, different mobile phone brands and websites, that kind of thing, then you're more likely to see advertisements about that kind of thing, Samsung Galaxies, iPhones, etc. on YouTube pre-roll ads, because YouTube's algorithm knows that you are more likely to at least click on the advert instead of skipping over it. Now on YouTube, creators with ads on their videos will earn a certain amount per view of the ad, but they earn a lot more per click. I say a lot more, it's still only some couple of dollars per 1,000 clicks as opposed to a few cents per 1,000 views. But with the restrictions of not being able to show personalised adverts to users under 13, and this will be enforced by law, any creators who switch to kid-friendly content in order to avoid the adpocalypse, where all remotely adult content was getting slapped with not advertiser-friendly marks, those goddamn yellow ticks, is no longer going to have any personalised adverts shown on their videos. And personalised adverts make up for, on average, at least up until now, 90% of a creator's ad revenue. So, basically, we at YouTube would like to tell you that we've stopped fucking over all creators that make content on the military, anything to do with gender or sexuality, any sort of violent video games, and any other characteristics we deem as not being suitable for most advertisers, and instead we're now just fucking over all creators. Okay, we have to be fair, YouTube doesn't actually want this, they hate this, the advertisers don't want this, and the viewers, the users, probably don't want this either. I'm sure asterisks and amendments will probably be fought for in the future. But for now, the problem I see is that instead of actually YouTube themselves showing personalised ads to anyone they can, and automatically switching them off specifically for any account registered as under 13, they're leaving it up to the creators to designate blanket whether or not their content is made for children, and by extension asking them to deny themselves 90% of their ad revenue, because none of their audience, even those that are over the age of 13, will be shown any personalised adverts if you click that box that says, my content is aimed at children. Oh, and if you make content specifically for kids and you lie, and say that your content is not for kids in order to escape losing 90% of your ad revenue, well then you'll be liable to pay a fine of some 40 to 50,000 US dollars. Here's the thing though. War Thunder has an age rating of 11 years plus. World of Warships has an age rating of 7 years plus. What if the FTC decides to say, hey, hold on, this content is for children and you're saying it's not in order to circumvent the laws denying you 90% of your ad revenue? Well, what do I do? I doubt I have a large audience of children on this channel, to be honest, and you'd hope that the FTC would look at the actual audience of a channel with allowances for the fact that, as far as I'm aware, you can't actually see what percentage of your audience is under a certain age. I don't intend for my videos to be viewed by children, even though the games I upload footage of do have age ratings that permit them to be played, and by extension watched on YouTube, by an audience of children who can't be shown personalised adverts. I doubt these games have a large audience on YouTube of children under the age of 13 anyway, and I suppose that we should just be glad that I've started uploading my military coverage content, because that is definitely 100% not aimed at children. Oh, but then I get fucked in the ass by copyright laws. Oh, well, isn't that just perfect? Monica actually suggested when they heard this that, well, why doesn't YouTube, like Netflix have done, just create a platform, YouTube Kids? All accounts under the age of 13 would automatically be restricted to only see videos uploaded via YouTube Kids, and would therefore never need to be shown personalised adverts. But YouTube's creators, besides monitoring where their content is uploaded to, which would be in their best interests anyway, because if you upload content that's for kids, no kids are going to see it if you don't put it up on YouTube Kids, but we wouldn't have to sacrifice 90% of our ad revenue just because maybe possibly a decent portion of our audience is under the age specified by the COPPA law. Or risk a 50 grand fine, which, if you're a YouTube creator with under 500,000 subscribers, there is just no way you're going to be able to pay. Thanks YouTube, you're not helping us out here, are you? Oh, but I should be careful saying that, because the fourth piece of utter bollocks coming from the realms of YouTube drama this month, at least that I care to talk about, somebody uncovered that in YouTube's terms of service, they specify in one clause that they reserve the right to automatically terminate, with sole discretion, meaning there is nobody else that can help you here, any channel deemed not commercially viable. Well, what the fuck does that mean? Absolutely no idea, And fuck if YouTube's going to want to clarify it when the ambiguity directly benefits them, allowing them to use that clause as they see fit without tying themselves down. Now, I originally thought that this was a new addition to the terms of use, but as it turns out, it's actually been in there for 10 years. Which, if my memory serves correctly, would be about the time people like Machinima and TGN came onto the scene. And that's what the news was, not that it was being added, as I thought, but that it was uncovered, that it had been in there the whole time. Now, I would suspect that it has to do with YouTube companies like Machinima, TGN, etc., or possibly things like buying views, skewing the algorithms by paying a third-party website to increase your viewership. That was a big issue back then. Possibly it refers to things like ad blocker, earning revenue for the creators of a video from YouTube when you never actually saw the ads, and therefore lower the rate at which ads being shown translates to revenue for the advertiser. That's not commercially viable for YouTube. Now that's the direct reason why advertising revenue on YouTube is so much lower than it was 4 or 5 years ago, because advertisers aren't willing to pay YouTube as much, and by extension YouTube won't pay its creators as much when views have such a low rate of actually translating to clicks and subsequently purchases. So anybody watching this video who uses an ad blocker, fuck you. You're forcing YouTube to pay us criminally little, and also nowadays playing 2 pre-roll ads before some videos rather than just 1, just to make up the difference. Yeah, don't use a third-party ad blocker. If you really 100% do not want to see advertisements on YouTube videos, just pay for YouTube Red. Oh wait, it's not available in this country, is it? Nice one, YouTube. What are you doing? It's not like Australia's a third world country, despite what our internet connectivity speeds might tell you. Anyway, I digress. I don't think that this clause about terminating channels that are not commercially viable has to do with channels that don't put advertisements on their videos, say negative things about YouTube, or anything like that. But hey, who knows? The language used is purposely so fucking vague. God. Enough about YouTube. I went to the Tarnanthi launch last month, which Tarnanthi is an annual art festival celebrating the artworks of Australian Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, and it's being held at the Art Gallery of South Australia. To give you some context, if you didn't know, Australian Aboriginal people are some of the oldest cultures on Earth, and it's the Aboriginal peoples of Australia that are responsible for things like the boomerang, the didgeridoo, and the name of the big fuck-off rock in the centre of the country. White settlers named it Ayers Rock, but a good few years ago now, its official name was changed to the traditional Aboriginal name in the native language of that region, which is Uluru. Monaco was very excited about Tarnanthi because it was being hosted, at least in part, by a company they want to work for, and they've actually been studying Aboriginal cultures and specifically focusing on Aboriginal artwork at university for the last 3 years. Actually, they're about to complete that course, which is very exciting. But the Tarnanthi Art Festival is amazing. The artwork on display, I mean, I don't have much of an eye for paintings, truth be told. I like big, wide landscape paintings just because they look nice, and I've never really been one to analyse deeper meanings and such in abstract paintings, for example. It all just looks like a bunch of colours to me. But the artwork on display during the festival was stunning, absolutely incredible. There was one piece, which I will try and put some footage of, where there was a dark room with a couple of wooden tree trunks in the middle, and a load of painted fish being projected onto the floor. And wherever you stepped on this floor, the fish, all painted in the way Aboriginal artworks traditionally paint a fish, would swim away from you, or swim around you. Everywhere you stepped, they'd quickly scurry away. It really was amazing to see. I mean, the technology isn't that stunning these days, but the way it was used was really beautiful. And the paintings, there were a lot of stories that come with them. For example, the Aboriginal cultures, of which there isn't just one, there were about 300 separate Aboriginal tribes, quote-unquote, all with different cultures and even different languages, most of which are now lost to us, unfortunately. But one thing they shared was a great importance placed on family and heritage, and a lot of the artwork reflected that. They have their beliefs, I'm not sure if you'd call it religion, but their dreaming stories, as they call them, all about spirits like the Lightning Man, who's part of their creation myth and is supposedly a cross between the elemental force of lightning and thunder and mankind. And there are a ton of these different spirits that embody the cross between mankind and elemental forces of nature, or for example between mankind and animals, Australian animals such as the crocodile or kangaroo. And each Aboriginal person would trace their family line back to one of these spirits, back to one of these animal-human spirits. That's their totem, if you will. What's really cool about that is that that cross between mankind and the animal kingdom sounds remarkably similar to the beliefs of the gods of Egypt, Ra, Osiris, Hathor, Bast, and so on. They'd be human figures with animal heads. And a lot of the artworks at the Tarnanthi festival reflected that, these dreaming stories. Aboriginal peoples suffered a huge deal at the hands of white colonists from Europe, in much the same way that the Native American peoples did when settlers first came to America, and even to a similar degree that Jewish people were persecuted in Nazi Germany. I implore you guys to look up things like the Stolen Generation, where Aboriginal children were taken from their families and forced to grow up in white communities and have children with white people in the hopes of breeding out the Aboriginal people in Australia. And some of these acts are even... they sound as if they're lifted straight out of the Holocaust. For example, during the Holocaust, the Nazis wanted to perform tests on the endurance of the human body, so they got Jewish prisoners to basically run until they dropped out of sheer exhaustion, and then they'd shoot them. Well, the White Australia policy had that exact same thing happen to Aboriginal people, families. However, instead of being shot at the end, they'd be marched right off a cliff and fall to their deaths. Really horrific stuff. Some of the artwork at Tarnanthi, well, it's a very sore subject that basically the entire collective peoples indigenous to Australia can identify with, so you can bet it was at least alluded to in some of the artworks at the festival. And I could talk for hours about Aboriginal cultures in Australia. They're extremely fascinating, and surprisingly enough, most people overseas really don't know a great deal about them. Even I don't, and I've lived here for almost 2 decades. We learn about the Stolen Generation in school, and a tiny bit of their history, but our government has never actually cleared a lot of the history of the White Australia policies to be part of the school curriculum. But, for example, even though explorers from Europe are credited with the discovery of Australia, there's actually been uncovered some pretty indisputable evidence that long before the discovery of Australia by Captain James Cook, or even before that by the Dutch, who weren't officially credited with it at the time, but long before that, the peoples of Australia had dealings, including trade, with the peoples of Japan and Korea, and Egypt, which just paints what I said about Egyptian gods and Aboriginal dreaming spirits in a new light, doesn't it? Or for example, I've been talking about Aboriginal artwork, and I'm sure a lot of you who know of it will immediately think of the very famous style of dot paintings. That's kind of become synonymous with Aboriginal Australian artwork. But despite Aboriginal peoples being among the oldest on Earth and their artwork having existed for millennia in cave paintings, bark paintings, etc., that style of dot paintings, the one that a lot of people know to be synonymous with that style of artwork, well, that actually only came about in the last possibly 150 years, at least in a big way. Prior to that, the only region where dot painting was a common style was a very specific quote-unquote tribe in the southeast of the modern-day state of Victoria. The rest of the country, around 300 separate tribes, a few 100,000 to million people, wouldn't actually use that style. They'd use hatched lines or just painting traditional style rather than dots. The style of dot paintings only became a widespread signature of Aboriginal art as a way of hiding or disguising some of the more intimate parts of the culture represented in the artworks, things that outsiders weren't meant to see, from foreign settlers. By the way, if you notice the massive air quotes whenever I say tribe when talking about Aboriginal people, it's because it's not technically correct to call them a tribe. The word tribe infers a hierarchy with a chief, something anybody who knows a thing or two about Native American or Celtic cultures will be familiar with. But Aboriginal Australian cultures had no true hierarchy. They had elders, people who commanded a lot of respect spiritually as mentors, etc. But they weren't really leaders of the peoples. The Aboriginal peoples were also nomadic, so there's not a whole lot of their culture that remained for explorers and such to actually find and use to study their history. A lot of their history was passed down through what they called their dreaming stories and through song. Anyway, back to the festival itself. The opening was headed in the heart of Adelaide City, outside the art gallery just on the main street, by an Aboriginal artist named Baker Boy, whose music I've actually been getting somewhat into recently. He comes from the mob, which is how they refer to their family groups, their quote-unquote tribe. It's not a derogatory term for the culture. But he comes from the Yolngu folk, which originate in the very northern part of the country, near the city of Darwin, a place called Arnhem Land. And what he does is really, really cool, in that he attempts to A, keep his culture alive, and B, bring it to other people, make them interested in learning a bit about it, by including some words in his native language, which, once again, there were some 300 Aboriginal languages, but he'll include words such as Yidaki, Mariona, and even some instruments like the very famous didgeridoo, in his otherwise modern hip-hop music. Well, he performed at the opening of the festival, and he was absolutely brilliant, and there were a couple of other groups of Aboriginal people performing too, some more traditional pieces. And the crowd of people gathered just on the side of the basically main road in the city they were all going nuts. It was absolutely amazing. And I recommend that you do check out Baker Boy. I'll leave a link below this video to one of his songs. It's funny because one whole part of the chorus he does in Yolngu language, and the lyric video just goes blank for that portion because nobody outside of his own people, or people who study the language, will have any idea what he's actually saying. And Tarnandia has definitely given me a bit of an appreciation for Aboriginal cultures and people, which I'm sure Monica is proud of. They're certainly a lot less susceptible to sunburn than I am. I currently look a bit like a tomato ever since the Edinburgh Air Show, which I went to last weekend. Now, I'm going to make a video specifically showcasing the 2019 Edinburgh Air Show because it was utterly fantastic. C-17s, Spitfires, FA-18s, F-35As, so much to see. It's going to be a lot of fun making that video. Unfortunately, my camera battery didn't last long enough to record everything, so some of it was captured just on my phone, but I think I'll save that discussion for another video. We might even make 2 videos on Edinburgh, one showcasing all the exhibits and discussing the aircraft, and another just chatting about my experience that day. I think this video is getting a wee bit long for that kind of thing. Nonetheless, I hope you do all tune in for those videos. They'll both be out soon-ish, I can't promise when, hopefully within a week, but aside from that, I'm going to leave it here today. Thanks lads for coming to watch this video. I hope you have enjoyed it and that you leave a like if you did. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, all that jazz. Have a lovely good day lads, and until next time, always remember, keep your bagpipes in one hand, whiskey in the other, keep your kilt on, and I'll catch you next time. I say a wee thank you to these lads for supporting me on Patreon. Captain Thubar, Gisli Gadarsson and Dark Recon. You lads are braw. If you wish to join them, come check out the link in the description below.